What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? You already know what time it is. You either get right or you get left. Welcome to the Bird Cage on the Perch. This is your boy, the historian, better known as Ryan Walker. We got a special one for you today. We have Dr. Joe Taylor, former football coach, current athletic director, and member of the College Football Playoff Board, joining us today. This man has 5 national championships under his belt. We're going to get into that and also his illustrious career outside of football and how he's touched so many lives. You don't want to miss this. You either get right or you get left. Stay tuned, baby. This is the Birdcage. Let's go.
Okay, y'all, this is it.
Welcome to the On the Perch special segment interview for Dr. Joe Taylor for the Birdcage. I'm Ryan Walker, better known as a historian. Had to do the interview a little bit early today because of the scheduling for Dr. Taylor. So, without further ado, before we bring Dr. Taylor in, go ahead and click that like and subscribe button for us. If you're on YouTube, go ahead and click that subscribe button so we can get those numbers up so we can continue to keep bringing you the quality material that we have been bringing you since day one. Now, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring in our guest. We have Dr. Joe Taylor. Normally, we'd have two individuals on the interview today. My interview partner is going to be out today, so I'm going to be holding this thing down myself. So, y'all just keep your fingers crossed for me. Well, I got a legend coming in here with me today. So, Dr. Joe Taylor, what's going on?
Well, I'm doing great, Ron. How you doing? And thanks for reaching out. And now officially, I haven't earned a doctorate degree, but experience has taught me that we've done the work, we just don't have the paperwork. So I know you keep saying Dr. Taylor, but it's actually I'm the vice president of intercollegiate athletics and community wellness at Virginia Union University.
So you're really doing doctor work anyway. Dr. Willard Bailey actually told me, he says, you make sure you call him doctor when you see him.
Oh, you're cutting out on me?
How about now? I apologize about that. How about now, Dr. Taylor?
Okay. It's a little bit better.
I think we lost him again. Oh man, this is not. We're gonna try to get him back on. I apologize about that, ladies and gentlemen. So we're definitely. So the thing is, I apologize ladies, we have technical difficulties, but we have this thing right back on track with Coach Joe Taylor. Dr. Willett Bailey told me to make sure I call you doctor because of all the work that you've put in, as well as Coach George Williams, who we've had on the show as well. And like I said, we're working on getting Dr. Bailey on the show. He spoke very highly of you, and also one of your rivals we had on this show, also a friend of yours, Coach Bill Hayes. He talked about
Oh
you and
yes.
Dr. Bailey.
Well, I tell you, we you're talking about some real legends there, Willard Bailey, and also Bill Hayes and George Williams. We all are
Mhm.
very respectful of each other, learned a lot from each other, and respect the fact that it all was blessings because to be in the business as long as we all were, or still is really,
Mhm.
it's all blessings because you're talking about 4 decades on that sideline, and we had tremendous success. But that's because we were smart enough to surround ourselves with uh, very strong student athletes, great assistant coaches, great administrators. Because I tell people all the time, I've never gone to a Kentucky Derby and seen a donkey. All right, you got to have horses,
Yes.
and throughout those 40 years of being on that sideline, real strong student athletes with a lot of character, a lot of discipline, and to be in 7 Hall of Fames, that simply means that you around some real good people because you just don't do that by yourself.
Correct. And as you were saying, you talk about being in 7 Hall of Fames. I know a little bit about you. I'm a fan. Even though, as you can see that Southern Jaguar plaque in the Southern Jaguars. I know you're a Hampton guy and Virginia Union, and also Howard, and also FAMU. But just looking at one of the guys who was your mentors, I remember hearing a quote that you said, and I also heard Bo Schembechler, legendary, rest in peace to the legendary coach at Michigan. He always said hard work doesn't go unnoticed, and that was
Yep.
something that I remember hearing him say. And then learning a little bit about your book that you have out. At the time when you talk about the makers of a champion, give, give yourself permission to win. When you talk about the way that you did this for 40 years, you were able to not only matriculate men on the football field, but you were also able to matriculate men in life. And then you transcended this to the office work where you were working with young ladies as well. So you've touched many lives out here. So what
Yeah.
what pleasure do you take? Because we're gonna get to the football aspect, but I want to hear the philosophy that you take when it comes to handling people, when it comes to doing tasks that you need them to do, or if it's not just doing tasks, just really trying to get the best out of those people so they can be the best version of themselves.
Well, and thanks for asking that too, Ron, because that's really where it all starts. First of all, I always looked at coaching as a ministry because whenever you're trying to improve the lives of others as well as yourself, to me,
Mhm.
that's a ministry. And when you look at the book that I wrote that talks about the making of a champion, success is an inconvenience. All that simply means is if you want to be successful, there are a lot of things you have to do that you don't feel like doing. But success cares nothing about how you feel. Success only cares about process. Did you do what was necessary to become successful? And over the years, whether it was in the office with, executive assistants or secretaries, whether it was strength and conditioning coaches, trainers, academic support, I always introduced everybody in the program to something I call control the dash. Control the dash is simply spelled out. There are four numbers that precedes all of us. Those numbers represent the year that you were born. You had nothing to do with it. Two people got together, had a glorious night, and you were the end result. You had nothing to do with it. At some point, there's going to be four additional numbers. That's called expiration. When the good Lord calls you home, there is no negotiating. So the first set of four numbers you had no control of. The second set you won't have any control over, but it's always in between those two sets of numbers a dash, a
Mm-hmm.
dash.
You
And
said a
what I
dash?
did was took a dash. That's all you got control over is that dash, the time between those two sets of numbers. And what
Mm-hmm.
I did at every program that I went to, I spelled those letters out. DASH dash. The D stands for discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Discipline. If you want to be successful in this life, and I just introduced this and told all of them, it starts with discipline. You have to do what is right. All right. A lot of times we get caught doing wrong. The first thing we say is, I didn't know. Well, you knew, you just didn't know you was gonna get caught. So discipline, you have to do the right thing. And I always put signs up around the football offices, in the training room, in the equipment room, all
Mm-hmm.
over the facility. I had signs that says, do the right thing. That
Mm-hmm.
stands for D, discipline. A is for attitude. Attitude is don't ever let anybody tell you what you can't or can do. Don't let anybody pay rent in your head. If whatever you want to do in life, if you get your attitude right, you will be able to get your life right. See, so many times we come out of situations in our communities where people said, you know, your mom wasn't no good, your dad wasn't no good, so you're not going to be no good. Every time somebody offer any kind of negative programming, you're supposed to reach inside and grab that handle and you
Mm-hmm.
flush all negative programming. Don't let anybody pay rent in your head. That's attitude. That's attitude. And I always use the example of Steven Spielberg. At one point, he tried to enter the drama school at the University of Southern Cal. Well, he was denied entrance. That school, that drama school now is named after him. That's what you call attitude, not letting anybody belittle or shortchange you of your goals. Another one I always use, Abraham Lincoln. We all know that during his childhood sweetheart passed.
Mm-hmm.
He had a mental breakdown. He ran for Congress, didn't make it. Ran for senator, didn't make it. Had a failed business, but at age 52, he became the president of the United States. That's having the proper attitude.
Mm-hmm. I'm actually gonna try to get him back.
Okay. And that third letter of dash, of course, is S. And S always stands for sacrifice. We always talked about our kids. I always told them, you don't make All American during the season. It's what you do in the off season that determines if you're going to be an All American. It's called sacrifice. It's the work that you put in. Early mornings when everybody else is asleep, you're up running stadium steps, or you're in the weight room lifting. And Michael Jordan is a perfect example of sacrifice because we all know that the first high school team that he went out for in basketball, he was cut. He
Mm-hmm.
actually was cut, but he went in the gym every day and he shot 1,000 basketballs. And the rest is history. We know the story. Went on to become one of the best to ever play the game. So that's what
Mm-hmm.
S stands for. In fact, I tell people too, you know, when you're willing to put the work in, I always tease them a little bit about this thing called 409. It's a detergent. And,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, the reason they call it 409 is because the 408 times that they tried to get it right, they couldn't. The 409th time they got it right, and that's where the name came from. So again, you're talking about sacrifice. You're talking about putting the work in. You're talking about being willing to work, because success comes before work only in the dictionary. You got to
Mm-hmm.
put the time in. And then the last letter is H, and that stands for habits. Man does not decide his future. Man decides his habits, and your habits decide your future. An example of that is a young man came by my office when I was at FAMU, and he said, "Coach, I want to be a doctor." I said, "Oh man, that's great. That's truly wonderful. But aren't you the young man I hear is out drinking every night? Your habit says you want to be an alcoholic, not a doctor. When you get your habits straight, you get your life straight. Controlling your dash, DASH. You can't loan it to nobody, you can't sell it, you can't give it away. It's your dash. When you control your dash, you put yourself in position to be successful in life. And that's really was what I did in all of those stops that I went. I introduced folks to controlling the dash, and that's the secret to our success.
And getting to it, one of those stops that you made was as a former athlete yourself back in the day. Can you discuss your collegiate experiences from what pushed you into the realm of coaching? Because I know you started off with high school becoming a football, basketball, wrestling coach, and
Mhm.
one of my coaches I had, because it's not too many African American wrestling coaches out there, and I can speak on that because I used to train with them. My old
Okay.
Coach Dennis Bartley, was all state at Sandalwood High School. And you're from a prominent city of Washington, D.C., where we say I'm originally from Atlanta, but raised around Jax, Florida. But for me, the rivalry between Atlanta and DC was, we say we're the city of the first black millionaires, and you guys rival us with it, and y'all say, well, we Chocolate City. So when you look at the greatness that has come out of the DC area, and the work and the hustle that you guys had in that city, what pushed you so hard to become to as an athlete, and then going into the realm of coaching to be able to touch young athletes' lives back in the day?
Well, again, I appreciate that because Robert Hedden, they call him Bob Hedden, one of the legendary coaches in the city of Washington D.C. And I guess they call it a district, not a city. But he was the one that kind of got me out of the hallways in the ninth grade, and we really appreciate him, encouraging that because not only did we find a sport that we loved, but he was also able to invite people to watch games. And I was Cardozo. That's the high school I played for, Cardozo High School. We played Good Counsel was a private school out in Silver Spring, and one
Mm-hmm.
Saturday we was out there playing, and this is again divine. It's just the Lord's work. There was a guy in town from Western Illinois. He was the AD at Western Illinois, and
Mm.
he was in town on business. Well, after the business was taken care of on Friday, his friend invited him to come to a football game. So happened it was Cardozo playing Good Counsel, and I've played offense, defense, special teams, and that was really one of my better games
Mm-hmm.
because the AD from Western went back and told the football coach, "Listen, I don't recruit for you guys. I don't do none of that. But I saw a guy this weekend in a game that you all have to look into. You all must look him up." And of course, they looked at the film, and that's really how I got there. Well, after 4 years of playing, full scholarship, and got my degree, I had
Mm-hmm.
promised Bob Hedden that I would come back and help him in the high schools.
Mm.
And I had a commitment to him because Bobby Bowden was the head coach at Florida State. No, he wasn't. He became the head coach, but
Because he was at West Virginia. He was at West Virginia first before he went to Florida State.
there you go, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But my coach, who I played for, Daryl Mudra, who was a Hall of Famer, he just passed last year at the age of 92. He left Western and he invited me to come with him to Florida State as a GA. But
Wow.
I had promised Bob Hedden that I would come back and help him because I appreciate what he did.
Mm-hmm.
But during that time I was with Bob Hedden, Daryl Mudra was fired, and Bob and um, what's his name? We just called it
You said Bobby Boughton?
Bobby Bowden because he's in my
Mm-hmm.
book too. Uh, he got the job at Florida State. Okay, and that's how I ended up, of course, kind of going down to Florida A&M the whole 9 yards. But life has always for me been in increments of five. Every 5 years, you should plan to do something different. All right, so that you don't become stale, you don't become, you still gotta find challenges. You got to grow, and that to me, every 5 years I made a move. So after being with Bob in high school for 5 years, Daryl Mudra, after he was fired, of course, from Florida State, um, he kind of went on a little commercial fishing career. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, Mike Mullally, who was the AD at Eastern, came to Tallahassee and convinced Daryl Mudra, who I played for in college, to come to Eastern Illinois.
Mm.
Well, the first one he called was me. Well, the 5 years are up, so it was okay. I had fulfilled my commitment promised to my high school coach. So now I'm going with my college coach. And I was on his staff as the offensive line coach. The
Mm-hmm.
offensive coordinator was Mike Shanahan, who went on to become a great pro coach.
I was about to ask you about old Coach Shanahan because my godfather, Clarence K, was one of his tight ends down in Denver with the Broncos back in the day
Yep,
when Dan Reeves was the head coach and Shanahan was the offensive coordinator back in the day.
yep,
And for you being his offensive line coach, I know he had, Shanahan had a stop down at University of Florida, unfortunately. I'm a Bulldog fan, as you can see. So, I
yeah,
know a little bit about that. But that
yep,
stretch runs system that he was known for, I've heard
mhm,
your name mentioned because of the blocking scheme that you had when he was the offensive coordinator at Eastern Illinois. He said there's a coach by the name of Joe Taylor who had he said we didn't have the biggest guys all the time. He said we had some
right,
guys, but he said that zone scheme was developed for guys that were athletic and
Yeah,
had a little girth on them, but they could move.
yeah,
So you're practically, I got to say it, Mike Shanahan gets the credit for it, but like they say, you were the one who really put in the work to make the baby as the offensive line coach.
yeah. Well, I tell you, what a great relationship. And of course, there was some opportunities for me to go to that level. But as I said to you earlier, I always looked at coaching as a ministry. And I felt that even leaving Eastern Illinois after a couple of years and coming to um, Virginia Union, I didn't look at young men because I took 15 men with me when I left D.C., Washington, D.C., left Bob Hedden.
Hmm.
When I went to Eastern Illinois, I took 15 guys from the city, from different high schools, so that they can have an opportunity. But like I said, Shanahan was the offensive coordinator. If you look at another name there, John Tillink, who was an outstanding defensive line coach
Yes.
in the NFL. He was a defensive coordinator. We used to go against each other every day because he was a D line coach. I was an O line coach. But to show you how strong that staff was that Darryl put together, Eastern Illinois had not had a winning season in 16 years. The first year we were there, we won a national championship in Division Two, unheard of. Uh,
Very unheard of.
yes, I mean, but we worked hard together. There was a lot of resourcing on that staff, and we had a chance to do some other things. But I always kind of wanted to be in a situation, and people have asked me so many times, why did you stay at the HBCU? I felt that the HBCU needed the impact of someone who cared about them beyond just being an athlete. I wanted to be a role model. I wasn't no Martin Luther King or anything, but I wanted them to see that you can wear a necktie, that you can have character, that you can reach your goals. So that's why I stayed away from the D1s. I stayed away from the NFL because if you look back at it, I would say out of every 10 players that I coached, 9 of them got their degree. And that to me was that's the impact I wanted to. And then when I talk to them now, when I see them, they have their own families. They have their own professions. That they went to the NFL. I have lawyers. I have doctors, educators. Corporate America, and that's the thing that I feel best about in reference to everything that the good Lord has, provided.
And it's something about, and I gotta bring it up. It's something about y'all DC boys. You know what I mean? And I gotta bring it up because he was one of my idols. And this man here, Mr. John Thompson, rest in
Yep.
peace.
Yep.
And I've talked to you off the record about Coach Eddie Robinson,
Oh.
but when I speak to you, Coach Taylor, and just knowing your story and knowing the strides where you've just elevated everywhere you've gone. You and Coach Thompson had one of the most similar messages. And I think,
Mm.
like I said, when you have great coaches like yourself, Coach Hayes that I've talked to, and so many others, but I'm just speaking on you DC cats. The one thing that I've learned from reading up on you and then reading up on Coach Thompson and just listening to some of your former players, everyone says, yeah, they taught us the X's and O's about our sport, our respective sports, basketball, football. But the one thing that they truly challenged us to have was character, and not just having character, also knowing what's going on outside in the regular world
Mm.
outside of football.
Mm.
John Thompson used to make his guys read a newspaper, in the locker
Mm.
room so they could have current events.
Yeah.
And you, on the other hand, I've heard stories about some of your players. You were teaching them etiquette. You were teaching them not just, and Dr. Bailey told me a little bit about it as well. He said we were teaching our young men how to go to dinner, how to
Yeah.
eat, how
Yeah.
to have a conversation, not just with the media, but when you
Yeah.
go on a job interview, how do you conduct yourself? What are you supposed to dress? How are you
Yeah.
supposed to act? You know,
Yeah.
the art of wearing a tie, you know, unless schools are sponsored now, a lot of young men don't believe in wearing ties. You know, I'm 36.
Yeah.
So, you know, I grew up around the age of having gentlemen that were in your position that looked after me and my dad and grandfather and so many male figures. And then, like I said, I remember watching you when I was a kid, when they used to show the HBCU games on BET back when I
Mhm.
was a little kid. I remember I remember you because you made me cry when you beat my Southern Jaguars 24-3 in the RCA Dome. I
Oh
remember
boy.
that game. It broke my heart. But having you on, it's a pleasure because you also defeated one of the gentlemen that I looked up to as well, even though I can't stand Grambling, but I love me some Eddie Robinson. You
Mhm.
beat these guys in 1990-91 up in New York and Giant Stadium, and
Yeah.
the preparation that you bring to the table when you talk about it, the like you talked about your dash, your control.
Mhm.
I love the fact that you have so many monikers and so many things that you embraced upon a lot of your young players, and you some of the things you said tonight have really made an impression on me, and I know it's gonna make an impression on a lot of my viewers, and I'm gonna apply some of this stuff. What was it that you told those young men at Virginia Union, because you had a lot of great athletes, but you guys didn't have the pedigree at that time as
Mhm.
that Grambling program, because Grambling, shoot, that was almost 40 years of Eddie Robinson at that time,
Yeah.
just literally having that monster of a program built and could compete with
Mhm.
anybody in the country still at that time. What did you tell your young men, and how did you get them to believe in their character and what you instilled in them to be able to pull off a victory of that magnitude?
And it was of a great magnitude because, of course, Virginia Union Division Two at the time, Eddie and Gramley was 1AA. And he was just looking for a little school to take to New York so that he could beat up on and kind of brag to his alumni. And because I tell you, his water boy was bigger than anything on my team.
Wow.
But the idea was, and I used to always tell my young men that, it's more to you than a uniform rack. All right. The good Lord put you here for a reason. And you're just using this athletic ability to fulfill your real purpose in life. I always had a chaplain, because I always said, find a man's spirit, there also you'll find him. If you get your spirit right, you get your life right. And we went up and we played that game on a Saturday, but I went up on the bus with my guys on Thursday because I had to let them get into Giant Stadium 2 days before the game because the first day I know they're gonna look around and say, "Man, Lawrence Taylor played here." They was gonna just be overwhelmed, just awed. And sure enough, we went to practice that Thursday. They couldn't remember not one play because
Mm.
they too much in awe. We went back Friday and practiced again, and I noticed that we could focus a little bit more. And on Saturday, they were ready for that because they were able to focus on Grambling because they had kind of gotten in there and got a feel for it and really kind of, to themselves. We just talked about what an opportunity this is. You all are playing Grambling. I mean, the Grambling. And you do your best here. I mean, the final score was 46-37.
Mm.
And Bebo Johnson, who was the running back, had 125 yards passing, 125 yards, receiving, and
Mm.
running. I mean, it was just Donnie Wright was the quarterback. He lives in Delaware. I talk to him maybe once a month. It was just the idea that you know, having those sessions every Friday night, and I call it it was testimonials, where I was able to convince these guys that, you know, if you could sit around the table with nine other guys and you made the 10th guy, that if you got up and everybody told what their situation was in life, nine times out of 10, you will go back and pick up your own.
Mm.
So stop having pity parties. You're not a mistake. Just work hard, and you're going to get your just rewards. And it was just, in fact, they have parties now, and they call them Joe Taylorisms, where they get together and they talk about all the things that I said. I don't know if I said half of it, but anyway, uh, they have parties and just have a good time, and they'll call and remind me too of stuff I said. But they just knew that. Look, this guy's gonna fight for you. He's not gonna tell you anything wrong, and he wants you to understand one thing: you are more than a uniform rack. The good Lord
Mhm.
didn't put you here just to be a uniform rack, an athlete. There's so much more to you than that, and let's go ahead and pursue that.
I got coach. I'm gonna tell you right now. I got eligibility. I know I'm a disabled vet now. I used to play. Like I told you, I was a safety and I was a DB. I got some eligibility. So if you got some pull and you trying to get back on the sideline, hey, I'll be your free safety. Just give me about half a year to get back in playing shape, and I definitely will be your safety.
I got you. I got you. But let me tell you, the good Lord, there's something about that number 40. And we put 40 years in it. But I tell you, I've transitioned now from coaching players to coaching coaches. We have 15 sports in our athletic department. Uh, I was given the autonomy back when I retired from FAM in 2012.
Hmm.
I was just playing golf with Bobby Bowden and digging up divots in the on the golf course. But the previous president at Virginia Union, Claude Perkins, he said,
Hmm.
"Coach, I know you have retired, but we've fallen on hard times. We haven't won any championships in a while. Would you come and give me 3 years?" And that was back in 2013. And this is 2023. So that's 10 years. Somebody can't count. But I am not complaining. I'm gonna die empty. So this is 50 years now. I've been in this thing, and I'm not thankful anymore. I tell the Lord every day, I am grateful for what you have allowed me to do, and to be able to still do it. And we're 7-1 in football. Um, got a great opportunity, I think, to win the conference this year.
Mm.
I meet with the coach once a week, but I'm talking to him about a lot of things. But whatever he asks me some things, then I'll go ahead and ask him, or answer. But I've just been blessed, Ron, and that's the only way I can say it. It's just been a blessing.
Now, I've been blessed to be able to talk to, like I said, Coach Hayes, um, yourself, and Dr. Bailey. I'm actually working on getting Dr. Bailey on the show. Um, and I'm a Georgia Bulldog fan, so I got to see a lot of the stuff with Coach Kirby Smart,
Mm.
and some of the mannerisms and some of the things that you put out I'm laughing because it's like, man, it's like listening to it's like who we see what Kirby Smart stole a lot of his stuff from. We see because he was a graduate assistant of Bobby Bowden for a while, for a year, and Mark Rick was one of his coaches, and
Yeah.
Kirby moved around with some great coaches. And I look at a lot of the stuff, from the collegiate rankings and how things are handled and how something my old coach, and I'm still close with him to this day, Coach McGriff, he comes on the show, my semi-pro coach who I played for before I
Mm.
went to the military. And
Okay.
He's like another father figure to me. And Coach McGriff always used to tell me, even though I was a little older, I was 22, 23 when I was playing for him at the time, trying to walk on and just get a scholarship so I could finish my degree at that time. But,
Mhm.
injuries happened and that kind of deterred that. And that's why I went to the service. Coach McGriff would always say to me, he said, you got to understand. Yeah, you grown enough to fight for this country. He said, I did it too at one point when he was in the Navy. He said, but I'm gonna let you know this now. He said, you still a boy in a lot of ways. And I
Mm.
looked at him. Now I'm 20, I'm 22, 23. I've been paying bills, doing. He said, no.
Yeah.
He said, I'm not saying the responsibility aspect. He said, the way that you view life in your prism mentally, he said, you're not gonna really understand what life is like until you're in between 34 to 40
Mm.
years old. He said
Mhm.
that's when you're really gonna start, it's gonna click for you.
Yeah.
Some takes a little longer, but
Yeah.
he said you'll understand what life is like because he said when you're in your 20s, unless even if you got a family, you still have a young man's mind. He said you are
Yeah.
still a child mentally. And the thing I was gonna ask you about that, how were you able to not control, but how were you able to get the best out of the young men who played for you, as well as and you have some young people that work in the staff in the office with you. How were you able to get the best out of young people, and how are you able to still correlate and relate your messages, and you're able to reach people the way that you are, the way that you do, Coach?
Yeah. Well, again, I now I do move around, and I put on at least 4 or 5 times a year. I'm someplace speaking, whether it's for an organization, the Good Feet Company, or um, wherever there's a conference. And I really, it all comes down to just being. In fact, if you ask some of my players, they thought I was probably crazy because there were times when, like when I went to Hampton, whenever it rained, I guess the old coach, they used to go in the gym and practice. And I used to ask them, where are you going? Is the game played in the gym? So no, we're gonna practice where the game is played. And we cannot control the weather, but we can control how we play in it.
Yep.
And I remember days that we would just go, and if the gym was in the off season, it'd be cold in the mornings. It's just so many times whenever I always said this, if I accept your excuses for what you did not do, all I did was justify your failure.
Whew.
Okay. So I'm not, a guy who accepts excuses. If the other guy did it, you can do it.
Mhm.
And I'm not going to let you get away with excuses because, in fact, a lot of the guys, they thought I was crazy to the point where once they graduated, they said, "Oh my God, Coach, talk. This is what he was talking about." You
Yep.
know, it was a reality check. Now, it didn't make a lot of sense at the time because, uh, for instance, if a guy on a Friday or Thursday night and he was in my game plan for the Saturday's game, I never punished the whole team by or trying to punish one. I would let that guy still play on Saturday, but Monday morning, while
Mm.
everybody else is asleep, he's got to meet me at the track at 6 a.m. And, a lot of times I didn't know what I was going to say, but I would say, just start running. And while you're running, I'll figure out, get my thoughts together so I can talk to you. And about 2 hours later, I would stop him. And I would go and say, listen, you can't do this by yourself. You don't know, not only are you letting you down, but you're letting your teammates down. Um, just that accountability. I don't care where I am, who's in my office. accountability. Because they say ability is one thing, but dependability is more important.
Mhm.
Let me know and let your teammates know that they can depend on you. All right? Because who wants to be around someone who says one thing but has no intention of carrying it out? So, accountability, dependability, and listen, you want to be that person that when people look at you or see you coming, they say, oh my God, okay, I know I can depend on him or her. Or you don't want them to say, uh oh, here comes so and so, and everybody turn around and walk away. So you just teaching them responsibility, accountability, and not letting them get away, with those excuses because they tell the same lie over and over again.
And coach, and that's the reason why a lot of the younger players now, with all these kids out here now, you have coaches that are not developing character now. It's more about let me get these wins,
Yep,
but you're leaving a young person undeveloped and not ready for life. And
yep,
that's the reason why we see so many different things and no one takes accountability.
yep.
Especially, if you look at the NFL now, I hate to use the DC. I hate to use a DC representative who just won the Heisman last year, Caleb Williams.
Yep.
Caleb Williams has some of the greatest talent in the world as a
Hmm.
quarterback.
Yep.
Can throw the ball. If I got to compare his ball skills, I would say he moves like Steve McNair used to move, but he's
Mm.
got a cannon like Jefferson Street Joe Gilliam had.
Yep.
God rest
That's right.
Jefferson Street Joe's soul.
That's
And
right.
I always, like I said, I support my HBCUs, even though I had to go another route. I support them, but this
Hmm.
kid has all the ability in the world to be a great, great quarterback. But the problem is you're not being held accountable for the things you do in the game that are
Hmm.
negative and the
Yep.
way that you handle. And now he's not a problem child off the field, thank God, because
Right.
we have too many young men that are going by the wayside and becoming statistics for American society
Yeah.
now, unfortunately. But this young man, you know, the thing that showed me that they're not helping his character after USC lost that Tulane game last year. And,
Hmm.
for number one, you're a black quarterback. You don't know the struggles that most black quarterbacks had to go through.
Hmm.
You got a guy like a Warren Moon who should have been a Heisman winner, should have been drafted. You look at Doug Williams, the route that he went through Tampa, and we had his old teammate Dewey McClain on last week talking
Hmm.
about some of the stuff he went through. And you look at some of the guys, Marlon Briscoe, Parnell
Hmm.
Dickinson, and
Oh boy.
Jefferson Street Joe Gilliam. You look at these guys that have gone through hell and high water to
Hmm.
just to be a quarterback. Don't matter what level. And you're
Right.
at USC, a
Yep.
place, Vance Evans and many others that have come before you, that had an opportunity to do that. They opened that door and
Yep.
you lose the game, you can't face the media and have accountability, and they
Mm.
let you slide. Then you get on the sideline last week and you pout because you
Yeah.
lose and you're threatening to hold out and you're saying, "Oh well, I don't want to go to these are the NFL teams I'm going to go to." Like, listen, you're privileged and you're blessed to even
Mm.
make it to that level for number one, for somebody to give you an opportunity.
That's
You
right.
got a Heisman Trophy.
Yep.
Not and that is one of the hardest things to get with all the great athletes and players that have come through. You're a part of of how would we say it? You're a part of a fraternity
Eternity. Yep.
that's a small fraternity.
Yeah.
And you're one of the few black quarterbacks in that fraternity.
That's right.
You got young kids looking at you, and you're standing on the shoulders of those who did not get a chance to, that were Heisman candidates
Hmm.
that did not get a chance to have that opportunity.
That's
And
right.
you talk about developing, and the reason I say that is because you've won five black national championships, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna say it just like he won five national championships, ladies and gentlemen. We're not gonna put the HBCU title. A national championship is a national championship, regardless of what level it is on. I'm not going to disrespect my HBCUs like that.
Yeah.
11 playoff appearances, four CIAA championships, six MEAC championships, two CIAA. Northern Championships, and you were a Coach of the Year in the MEAC 4 times in a row, and you made it to the Hall of Fame. You held men accountable because you wouldn't have these accolades, as you said before, Coach, if you wouldn't have held people accountable,
Right.
had had the mojo that you put out there for them, and you wouldn't be able to do half of the stuff you're doing if you didn't hold guys accountable. So we need more coaches out here like you, because nowadays we don't have that no more. We
Right.
really don't.
Well, I tell you, because of that portal, um, there's no such thing as tough love anymore. If you tell a kid what he should hear and not what he want to hear, he just get in the portal and just transfer, just go down the street. Um, but I still think that uh, people still want discipline.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes we're afraid of it because we feel like the person might leave and leave my program. But you're right. But the portal has a lot to do with that. And then,
Mm-hmm.
uh, young people having kids younger, they almost sometimes they're more like friends rather than parents.
Mm-hmm.
And so kids are raising kids. So the dynamics of our society now has changed so much. I don't know if I could do it now, but I feel like I could because once people know, and you've heard this over and over again, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And
Mm-hmm.
my players knew that I cared. I did what I did because I cared about them, as I said, beyond running and tackling and throwing and catching. I wanted to see them be successful and not go back home. I used to tell my coaches, we got to be better than the guy next door back home
Mm-hmm.
because he was told, just get to college and you're going to have a chance. So when he get here, we can't confuse them by lying and not caring and not teaching them what it takes to be successful. I used to hold my coaches accountable, and like I said, going to church, we didn't. We did that. We had a sermon. I know I probably said this. Every Friday night at home or on the road, I had my chaplain with me so that he could preach. Because I wanted to feed the spirit. Because again, find a man's spirit, also there you'll find him.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and it's not once you look at it and hear other people, hell, it ain't as bad as I thought it was. And once your spirit's in the right place, and I know I'm rambling on, but I'm just saying
No, no,
it's
no. This is something that viewers need to hear, because here's the thing: on this show, we let our guests speak freely. So, Coach, go ahead. This is all you right here, please.
yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I'm honest to be honest with you because um, normally when we recruit or young men come to us at the HBCU, they come with a few more circumstances. And that's one of the reasons, too, I did not stay at the PWI, um, you know, predominantly white institutions, because I felt like when I was coaching there, that those young men could just get a shave and get a haircut and go
Mm-hmm.
home and join the family business. Well, that wasn't the case uh, with our guys, with the HBCUs. Probably this, if they didn't make it with this, they probably weren't. All right. So I didn't want this opportunity to not be taken full advantage of. So that's why we took, and most of the time I called them into my office. It was very rarely about football. I'm talking to them about life. How's the family? How are you handling this? And then I took the upperclassmen. I made them mentors for the younger guys coming in because we can't get this thing done by ourselves. But when we can latch on to some mentors talk to someone who's had gone through the experience. Maybe I won't have to go through as make as many mistakes as the last guy or the next guy. So through it all, though, when you're winning and kids see success breeds success. Um, whereas sometimes they probably didn't want to go through all of it. You know, when we went to Hampton, they were everybody's homecoming team. They couldn't win a game. Well, we went there in 92, and
Mm-hmm.
we won the championship in 92, 93, 94. In fact, they kicked us out to CIAA, made us go up to the MEAC, which is Division One AA. But again, you
My high
know,
school coach had some my old high school coach had some battles with you. His name is Dion Brooks. He was my cornerback coach. He played at FAMU. He and
uh,
he and his best friend Russell Parker were on Coach Billy Joe's team back in the day, and they were on that start. They were in the starting secondary, and they helped them win a national championship. They talked about that four overtime. They played a game with you guys where they went four overtimes, and Coach Brooks still to this day said, I looked over at that sideline and he said it was two stubborn wheels at that game. And he said, as hard as they ran us in practice, he said, we were on the field trying to beat up on each other. He said, it got to a point in the game to say, hey man, one of us gonna have to make a play so we can go home. These
yeah,
old men
yeah.
killing me. And that was what Coach told me how treacherous that four overtime game was with you guys. And when you look at the battles that you've had and you look at where you've come from the championships through the Hall of Fames to being on the college football collection connect excuse me um, selection committee now, and you're the only coach that's on there that's an HBCU coach.
Yeah.
That to me, I think that's one of the biggest. Most people are like, well, no, that's a big thing, ladies and gentlemen, for all the legendary coaches and many players and folks that have contributed to the NFL and the success of college football. All these PWIs would not exist without great HBCU players and the coaches that fed these well, I'm sorry, they didn't feed the programs. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. You're not saying it. I'm saying it. So I'm making sure if anybody sees this, Ryan Shea Walker is saying this, better known as historian. PWIs were pulling NIL, stealing black players long before this NIL even was established. They were paying players to go to their schools and taking the best players out of HBCUs. They didn't want us there at first, but because of the foundation that you guys have set, that you guys set at the HBCU level, most of that talent started to go over. And now that you're on the even playing field after having players that were poached and approached in different things, you're sitting at an area where you decide the fate of a lot of colleges that have good seasons, and you're in the room and making decisions on college football. How does that come full circle for you coming through the HBCU ranks as a coach and having success to being at this point to where now you're seeing that an HBCU coach is having input on the future of the college football playoffs? I mean,
Well, first of all, Ron, please know I consider it a real honor, first of all. And I really call it coming full circle.
mhm,
And I know I'm there because of the body of work. I don't know, it's no one thing that you point to. It's just that um, because in this world, they say, yeah, they always say it's who you know, but I think it's more of who knows you.
mhm,
And I've been in some circles because when I was at the American Football Coaches Association, they have about 21 different committees that you can serve on. And I probably served on 20 of them and ended up being the president of the American Football Coaches Association back in
wow,
2001.
wow.
Well, and at that platform then was Hampton.
Mhm,
And then to go on to get in 7 different Hall of Fames. When I was inducted into the National Football College Hall of Fame, 17 of us went into that hall in that class. in 2019. And out of all of us, I was asked to give the acceptance speech. And Bill Hancock, who is the executive director of the College Football Playoff Committee, he was in attendance. Uh, and I know he heard my acceptance speech. So that's how I got the call. Now, of course, he called some people like Dr. Dennis Thomas, who was my AD at Hampton.
Mm-hmm.
Grant Taft, who was the executive director of the American Football Coaches Association. And then, out of 40 years of coaching, I never had any infractions, like playing ineligible players or you know,
Mm-hmm.
so that integrity is in place. The hard work is in place. The no nonsense is in place. Family man is in place. So it's a body of work, I think, that went into that. And to be able, we start this coming Sunday and we fly down to Dallas 8 straight Sundays. We're there for 2 days. We fly back on Tuesday nights. And the first top 25 in the country will be out this coming Tuesday. And that's because of, it's actually 13 of us on the committee, but you got another 6 people who are from the CFP office that actually lives in Dallas. And those
Mm-hmm.
are the IT people. It's about 6 of them. So our total is 20 of us will be in the Gaylord, and we the only ones on that floor because we don't want anybody to accidentally bump into us.
Yep.
But it's a real honor. And then after the season is over, we'll decide who those final 4 will be that will go to the national playoffs.
Hopefully my man Kirby Smart keep these boys rolling because I need that 3P. I'm not
Well,
influencing nothing. I'm just saying I need Kirby to go ahead and handle business because I want Kirby. And I've already said this. No disrespect to Nick Saban and Bear Bryant and the greats that were there, but I'm sorry. Eddie Robb is the best. 9
yeah,
national championships, and
yeah,
Coach George Williams got 39 of them. So he's in the
yeah,
class by himself.
by
And
himself.
but in the football world, I got to say, Coach Rob is the GOAT. Period.
Yeah,
9
yeah,
national championships, and you've had over 200 players sent to the league, undrafted and drafted.
yeah.
And outside of that, I want Kirby Smart to catch Eddie Robinson. I don't want him to catch Bear Bryant. I don't want him to catch Nick Saban. I want him to surpass that because Coach Rob, to me, I don't feel like gets enough credit for what he did
Right,
for the
right.
game. Joe Paterno and so many of those guys, and a lot of people don't know Coach Jake Gaither, Big John Merritt, all these guys that were back in the
Mhm.
day. And when I say I'm a student of the game, Coach, I'm a student of the game. I believe in
Yeah,
this. And
yeah.
and when you look at these institutions that had national championship powerhouse schools that flooded the NFL with great talent, a lot of these coaches, in my opinion, need to have more and more recognition. Coach Mumford from Southern University, he needs to get a little bit more recognition as well. We
Yeah,
already we already know Coach Pete Richardson is already known for having his national championships for them SU Jags. But I
yeah,
just feel like it's so many that that get that don't even get recognized. And on this platform, we recognize greatness, whether it's collegiately, professionally, or we really try to give people their flowers that don't get their flowers. So this was an honor to have you on with us, Coach, with me, Coach, and tonight, and just being able to dig into dig into just a small portion of your career and you just dropping knowledge on us tonight. It's been a blessing to have that, and I'm just so thankful that that you put that out. And I want to make sure that I tell our viewers, hey, if you have a chance, go on Amazon, go to your Barnes and Noble, check online. You need to get The Making of a Champion. Get that book that Coach Taylor has out there. Please support his book because it's a lot of jewels in that book that can help you through everyday situations in life and help you get through some of the toughest times. So that's pretty much what I have for you, Coach. And I want to thank you again. I got to get your address so I can make sure I send you this poster that you see in the back
Okay.
that was created for you, so you can have that for your office. And I'm going to be coming down to Virginia soon. I already talked to Dr. Bailey. So I got to make sure when I come down, I got to come down and try to catch you before you head off, during your weekly voting or whatnot. I got to make sure I try to catch you before then. Or if not, I'm definitely going to come down during the off season because I have a lot of I have a mentor of mine. Her name's Lisa Spotwood. She's the first African American Master Chief cook in the Coast Guard, and she was a female. So
Mm.
she's right there in Suffolk, Virginia. And that's one of my mentors. So I do go down there and quite frequently. So I come through Richmond a lot.
Well, listen, first of all, let me just thank you for reaching out, and it's been my real honor and pleasure. And continue to do what you're doing because, as you said, there's a lot of great things going on that people need to know about because, again, the only reason I wrote that book is because you have to continue to give back and pour into people because that's why I'm where I am because of people pouring back into me. And it's been my honor to, be here with you. And I will text you my address as soon as we hang up. And we look forward to seeing you in Richmond. All right.
Yes, sir. So
Continue.
with that being said, and don't go anywhere. I get that from you right after we get off. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank Dr. Taylor for coming on to the show. And he's going to be backstage waiting on me because I got to chop it up with him a little bit, get some things from him. But you guys check us out tomorrow night, Thursday. We're going to talk about the Atlanta Falcons facing the Tennessee Titans and whatnot. But this was just something that just needed to be brought to you. Like I said, I apologize. I had to hold it down by myself. I felt a little lonely in here today. I had I had Coach Taylor with me. I missed my crew, but I definitely will make sure that we have more information on that book for you guys. But we're going to have information for the Titans and the Falcons coming up Sunday as the Falcons head on the road to Nashville. So without further ado, we definitely appreciate you guys for coming through. Y'all be safe. We love you, and we'll see you tomorrow. Peace.